We're continuing in the book of Exodus. This week's Torah portion is called Vayera. The Jews are slaves in Egypt. God brings 10 plagues. In this week's Torah portion, we read about the first 7 of the 10 plagues. The second of which is the plague of frogs. And we read 10 times the word frogs are used in this week's Torah portion. The frogs everywhere. They're in the ovens. They're in the houses. They're everywhere. It's such a terrible plague. However, at the very beginning of the plague, Aaron stretches out his arm and his staff over the waters of the Nile, and out comes one frog out of the Nile, one frog. The frog starts with one frog. So we also read that the Egyptians were so angry at this frog that they started to hit it. And the more they hit it, the more it multiplied. That by hitting it, it created swarms, that it split into swarms, that more and more and more frogs came onto the land and became a plague because the Egyptians were so enraged that they kept hitting the frog, that their rage was destructive. It was irrational. It was counterproductive, but they couldn't control themselves. They kept hitting the frog. So we learn from this about anger. Our tradition teaches us that God is known to be slow to anger, that we should be godlike, so we should be slow to anger. We read that a pious person is someone who is slow to anger, like God, and easy to appease, that's a pious person. That when we're angry, there's no room for God, because we're so consumed by anger that there's no space for God there, that it's akin to idolatry. Anger is akin to idolatry. So there's a lot of sources in our Torah that speak about the importance of not expressing our anger in a negative way. We're born with anger. It's a character trait that many of us have, but we're asked to cope with it, to express it in good ways, go for a swim, meditate, journal, do whatever it is to express your anger in a healthy way and not a destructive way. The Egyptians are showing us how destructive and counterproductive and irrational anger can be, that their anger created the plague that overtook the land of Egypt. So my prayer for us is that God helps us to control and to express our anger in good and healthy and non-destructive ways.